Well. Episode 9 just dropped, and honestly, I'm still trying to process what the hell just happened. This episode was absolutely insane from start to finish, and if you thought things were getting complicated before, buckle up because we just went full throttle into chaos territory. So we pick up exactly where episode 8 left us hanging. Leon Prader is standing there shaking hands with Harrison like some kind of twisted meet and greet, while Dexter is literally watching his worst nightmare unfold right in front of his eyes. You can practically see the steam coming out of his ears. Harrison, being the innocent kid he is, starts talking about what a huge fan he is of Prader. The irony here is just painful to watch because Harrison has no clue he's talking to someone who could very well be planning his demise. But Dexter isn't having any of this nonsense. He immediately pulls Prader aside for a little chat outside, and let me tell you, the tension in the scene could be cut with a knife. Meanwhile, we get this shot of Charlie standing across the street with this smug little smile on her face. This whole setup screams trouble, and honestly, it made my skin crawl watching it unfold. Prader drops some interesting information during their sidewalk conversation. He tells Dexter that he's not particularly fond of surprises, especially the whole surprise son situation. But here's the kicker. He still believes Dexter is Ronald Schmidt, which means our favorite serial killer still has some wiggle room to work with. However, Prader mentions that Charlie is getting suspicious and wondering if Red might be the reason their precious serial killer club is falling apart. The audacity of these people, honestly. Now, Prader suggests they have a private meeting where Dexter can share his personal history, and Dexter agrees on one condition. Harrison stays out of this mess completely. You can see the protective father instincts kicking in, which is both touching and terrifying considering we're talking about Dexter Morgan here. Back inside the restaurant, Harrison is completely confused about why his father is suddenly rushing him toward a back exit like they're running from the law. The poor kid has no idea what's going on, but unfortunately for them, sneaking out doesn't work because someone is definitely watching their every move. Here's where things get really interesting because Dexter finally comes clean to Harrison about Prader's serial killer club and his involvement in it. Now, you'd think most kids would completely lose their minds learning their father is mixed up with a bunch of murderous psychopaths, but Harrison just takes it surprisingly well. In my opinion, this kid has been through so much already that nothing really phases him anymore. Now, as they're walking toward the subway, we get this great reveal that Angel Batista has been the mysterious watcher this whole time. He's following them through the streets, and honestly, seeing David Zayas back in action gave me all kinds of nostalgic feelings. The man still has that, intense detective energy that made him such a compelling character in the original series. During their walk, Harrison starts putting together some pretty terrifying pieces of the puzzle. He realizes that when Dexter got too close to the Trinity Killer back in the day, it resulted in his mother's death. Now with Prader in the picture, Harrison is worried the same thing could happen to him. Dexter promises his son that history won't repeat itself and they'll figure this out together. The subway scene was absolutely brilliant from a tactical standpoint. Dexter pulls this slick move where he darts out of the train right as the doors are closing, just in case someone is tailing them. Angel gets stuck on the train, unable to follow his target. It's exactly the kind of calculated move we'd expect from someone who's been evading capture for years. Later, when Angel is going through his photographs, he spots Prader, but has no clue who the guy is. Unlike Harrison, Angel doesn't have the context to understand what he's looking at, which honestly might be for the best considering how dangerous this situation is becoming. Now, let's talk about Harrison's workplace drama. His co-worker asks if he wants to make some extra money working an event at Leon Prader's mansion, and Harrison immediately shuts it down. Smart kid, honestly, but then things take a dark turn when he gets called for a room service request. We're probably thinking it might be his girlfriend with some sweet surprise, but no. It's Charlie, and she's not there for room service. This confrontation scene between Harrison and Charlie is actually nerve-wracking, at least in my opinion, because she starts asking why Harrison's last name isn't Schmidt if his father is supposedly Red Schmidt. The woman has definitely done her homework, and she knows Harrison's real name is Harrison Morgan. That's just one step away from figuring out his father is actually Dexter Morgan, which would blow this whole operation to smithereens. Charlie decides to make this conversation even more uncomfortable by pulling out her gun and placing it on her table. She's supposedly vetting Harrison for working Prader's event, but we all know this is really an interrogation. Harrison handles himself remarkably well under the pressure, telling her a version of the truth that's believable enough to satisfy her curiosity. He explains that his father abandoned him when he was 5 years old, and Morgan was actually Hannah's last name. He tells Charlie that he eventually tracked down his biological father only to discover the guy was just a rideshare driver, which apparently made her laugh hysterically. Now, the fact that that she finds the story amusing says a lot about her character and what she thinks of ordinary people. When Harrison calls Dexter to report this encounter, you can hear the fear in his voice, and Dexter immediately goes into protective father mode. He's proud that Harrison actually managed to tell just enough truth to seem credible without revealing anything dangerous. Also, if you could just hit that small red subscribe button, it would help me so much that you guys actually like these videos and want me to do more. But now he wants his son to come stay with him where he can keep him safe. So Dexter goes to see Blessing to make amends for their earlier conflict. He apologizes and admits he was wrong, which gets him the forgiveness and hug he desperately needs. Then he asks Blessing for a favor. He needs someone to pick up Harrison from work because the kid is in serious trouble. It's touching to see Dexter reaching out to his friends for help protecting his son. Now, using hotel records, Dexter tracks down Charlie's home address and breaks in to do some investigating. Now, what he discovers is pretty disturbing. She managed to get Harrison's fingerprints during their little chat, but that's not even the most shocking part of his visit to her house. Upstairs, Dexter finds an elderly woman in a hospital bed being cared for by a nurse. This isn't some random medical facility Charlie has been visiting. This is her own mother, and she's been taking care of her at home. Harry appears during this discovery, and for once, he's the one who's emotionally charged while Dexter remains calm. Harry is absolutely furious that Charlie is messing with his grandson, and he tells Dexter not to go soft on her just because she's taking care of her sick mother. Dexter's response is chilling because he promises he won't go easy on her. Now, the confrontation between Dexter and Charlie in her car is absolutely intense. He appears in her back seat like the original dark passenger we remember from the early seasons, wrapping a metal cord around her neck and threatening to saw her head if she tries anything with her weapon. This is vintage Dexter and at his most terrifying, and honestly, it was thrilling to watch. During their drive, Dexter reveals that he visited her mother and saw photographs showing Charlie was a Silver Star recipient in the Delta Force. This woman is a legitimate war hero, which makes her current criminal activities even more tragic. He wants to understand how someone goes from being a decorated soldier to working for a twisted serial killer enthusiast. Charlie's backstory is actually pretty heartbreaking when you think about it. She met Prader while working private security, and when he discovered her mother's medical situation, he offered to pay for her care. But as we all know, nothing comes free, especially from someone like Leon Prader. She's trapped in this horrible situation where she has to do terrible things to keep her mother alive. The most revealing part of their conversation is when Charlie admits she absolutely hates Prader's sick serial killer club, which she's not doing this because she enjoys it or believes in what he's doing. She's doing it because she's terrified that if she doesn't comply, Dexter will kill her mother. The woman is genuinely scared, and honestly, she has every right to be. Charlie explains that threatening Harrison was a direct order from Prader, not something she wanted to do. She's just as trapped in the situation as everyone else, which adds another layer of complexity to this whole mess. Dexter threatens to visit her mother again if Harrison is bothered one more time, then lets Charlie go with her life intact. Meanwhile, Angel Batista is having his own problems with local law enforcement. He meets with Detective Wallace and Melvin, but things don't go the way he hoped. Wallace tells him she contacted Quinn back in Miami, and suddenly Angel's excitement turns to disappointment. These detectives are more concerned about Angel's mental state than his theories about Dexter being alive. They point out that Angel retired specifically to focus on catching Dexter, and they're worried about how the deaths of James Dokes and Maria LaGuerta might have affected him psychologically. It's actually a reasonable concern when you think about it. Angel has been through some serious trauma related to these cases. Angel tries to explain that Dexter is a master manipulator who's fooled everyone for years, but the detectives aren't buying it. They give him a cease and desist order and tell him if he doesn't back off, he'll be arrested. The poor guy leaves feeling completely defeated, but then he spots something that changes everything. On his way out, Angel sees a poster for the police gala featuring Leon Prader. Suddenly, he recognizes the mysterious man from his photographs, the one he saw meeting with Dexter. This discovery gives him a new lead to follow, even though he doesn't fully understand what he stumbled into yet. Back at Prader's mansion, Charlie fills him in on her encounter with Red Schmidt. Instead of being angry about the slash wound on her neck, Prader's absolutely fascinated by it. He's practically giddy with excitement, saying she survived an encounter with the dark passenger. The guy's obsession with serial killers is seriously disturbing, and it's clear he views these interactions as some kind of twisted entertainment. Dexter calls Prader to set up their meeting for the next morning, promising to tell him everything about his past. In his internal monologue, he's planning the plunging knife into Prader's heart, which honestly sounds like exactly what this creep deserves. But before Dexter can execute his plan, Angel shows up at Prader's mansion and manages to get a meeting with him. This is where everything goes completely sideways. Angel shows Prader the photograph he took of him with Dexter, and then drops the absolute bombshell that Ronald Schmidt is actually Dexter Morgan. When Dexter arrives for his meeting, feeling confident about his plan, Leon greets him by his real name, while Charlie puts a gun to the back of his head. The look on Dexter's face when he realizes realizes his cover has been blown is absolutely priceless, and not in a good way. Prader takes Dexter into his private vault, which is filled with all kinds of serial killer memorabilia and disturbing artifacts. But the real shock comes when they reach a table where Angel Batista is tied up waiting. The table where the eye struck killer was murdered, which is obviously Dexter's brother. Now, seeing these two characters face to face again after all these years is pretty overwhelming, especially under these circumstances where Batista is on a murder table. Now, here's where Prader's true psychotic nature really shines through. He's not angry about being deceived. He's actually thrilled that he has the real Bay Harbor Butcher in his possession. He wants to watch Dexter kill in person, and he's planning to invite more serial killers to future parties where Dexter can murder them for entertainment. The price of admission to this twisted game is that Angel Batista has to die first. Dexter takes the knife and pretends to be excited about the prospect of killing Angel, which must have been incredibly difficult for him to fake. But instead of following through with the murder, he cuts Angel free from his restraints. It's a moment that shows Dexter still has some humanity left in him despite everything he's done. Angel immediately uses his freedom to tackle Dexter to the ground, screaming that this is for Dokes and Maria, and that Dexter's bullshit needs to stop once and for all. He starts choking Dexter, and our protagonist begins losing her consciousness. Now, just when it looks like Angel might actually succeed in taking down Dexter, Prader shoots him in the back multiple times. Prader and Charlie then flee the scene, leaving Dexter alone with this dying former colleague. This moment is absolutely devastating to watch, especially knowing the history between these two characters. And in Angel's final moments, Dexter admits that he is indeed the Bay Harbor Butcher, but he insists he didn't kill Dokes or Maria. Unfortunately, that distinction doesn't matter anymore because Angel is dying because of Dexter's actions, just like the others did. Angel's last words are, "Dexter Morgan, fuck you," before he slips away forever. Now, instead of feeling relieved that a major threat to his freedom is gone, Dexter screams with everything inside of him. And that's where the episode ends. Usually at the end of these videos, I actually have like in my opinion segment, but honestly, this episode was just filled with craziness, and honestly, I have nothing to say about it as it was just an amazing episode.